The massive view screen on the bridge of the U.S. Defiant filled with stars as Captain James Walker stood watching, his hands clasped behind his back. The ship hummed quietly around him, a sound unlike any other vessel in Earth's fleet. While other ships rumbled and vibrated, the Defiant purred like a content cat, her experimental quantum engines working in perfect harmony. "Status report," Walker called out, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. The bridge crew worked at their stations, each movement precise and practiced. They knew what was coming. Humanity's first official contact with alien life. "All systems normal, Captain," replied Officer Tom Wilson from his engineering station. "Quantum shields at full power, plasma drives running at optimal efficiency." He paused, checking another reading. "Sir, I still can't believe how smooth she runs. Nothing this advanced should work this well." Walker smiled. The Defiant was unlike anything humanity had ever built. Her hull was angular and sleek, more like something from a video game than a military vessel. When the design was first proposed, many had laughed. Now, no one was laughing. "Contact approaching, sir," announced Mary Cooper from her communication station. Her fingers danced across the holographic display. 3 vessels, classification unknown. They're big, each one about 3 times our size. Walker nodded. Main screen. The view shifted, showing 3 massive ships approaching. They were everything humans had expected alien ships to look like. Huge, circular vessels that practically screamed advanced technology. Next to them, the Defiant looked like a child's toy. "They're hailing us," Cooper reported. "Audio and visual." On screen, Walker ordered, straightening his uniform. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for. First contact. Real first contact, not counting the secret that lay behind the Defiant's creation. The screen flickered, and an alien appeared. It looked surprisingly humanoid, though its skin had a slight bluish tint, and its eyes were larger than human norm. It wore what appeared to be a military uniform, though the design was unlike anything on Earth. "Greetings, Earth vessel," the alien spoke, its words automatically translated by the ship's eye. "I am Admiral Dex of the Stellar Confederation. We have been monitoring your civilization's development with great interest." Walker stepped forward. "Welcome, Admiral. I am Captain James Walker of the United Earth ship Defiant. We are honored to make your acquaintance." The alien's expression changed slightly, its eyes narrowing as it studied the bridge behind Walker. "Interesting vessel you have, Captain. Our scans indicate technology that should be beyond your civilization's current capabilities. Would you care to explain?" Walker had been prepared for this question. "The Defiant represents the pinnacle of human innovation, Admiral. She's the result of our best minds working together to push the boundaries of what's possible." "Impossible," another alien voice cut in off-screen. A second figure stepped into view, this one wearing what appeared to be a scientific uniform. "We have monitored your civilization's technological progression. The jump from your other vessels to this one is too great. Someone has aided you. Someone has violated the non-interference protocols." Walker kept his expression neutral, though inside his mind was racing. They hadn't expected the aliens to be quite so direct in their accusations. "I assure you, the Defiant is entirely of human design and construction. We would be happy to provide documentation of her development process." Admiral Dex raised a hand, silencing his colleague. "Perhaps a demonstration would be more convincing. Your vessel's design is unusual, even by our standards. Would you be willing to participate in a small exercise?" "What kind of exercise?" Walker asked, though he already knew where this was going. The crew tensed around him, ready for anything. "A simple demonstration of capabilities," Dex replied smoothly. 3 of our older vessels against your one. Simulated combat, of course. No real weapons fire, just an exchange of targeting data and maneuver tracking. If your ship performs as well as your claims suggest, it would go a long way toward validating your level of advancement." Walker glanced at his crew. They had trained for this, prepared for this moment. The Defiant might look like science fiction, but she was very, very real. We accept your challenge, Admiral. Please transmit the exercise parameters when ready. The alien's expression was unreadable. Excellent. We will begin in 1 Earth hour. And Captain, I look forward to seeing what your vessel can do. The transmission ended, and the bridge was silent for a moment. Then Officer Wilson spoke up from his station. They don't believe we built her ourselves. No, they don't. Walker agreed, turning to face his crew. And they're partially right. We had help, just not the kind they're thinking of. He walked to the center of the bridge, looking at each crew member in turn. The Defiant exists because of human ingenuity, determination, and our ability to learn from the past. What they don't understand is that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to take dreams and turn them into reality. Sir, Cooper called out, receiving exercise parameters now. There, sir, these are combat scenarios far beyond anything we've trained for. The timing requirements alone. Walker smiled. Show them on the main screen. The display filled with tactical data, showing complex maneuvers and response patterns that would challenge even the Defiant's advanced systems. Look familiar to anyone? Wilson laughed suddenly. Video games. Sir, these are almost exactly like the combat scenarios from Star Squadron VOI. The patterns, the timing, they're gaming scenarios. Exactly. Walker nodded. Because when humanity dreams of space combat, we don't just imagine it. We turn it into entertainment. We practice it. We perfect it. Every kid who ever played a space combat game was unknowingly training for this moment. He turned back to the main screen, watching the 3 alien vessels take up position for the exercise. And that's why we're going to win. Because while they were developing these scenarios as theoretical exercises, we were turning theory into art. 30 minutes until the exercise begins, sir, Cooper announced. Walker sat in his command chair, feeling the subtle hum of the quantum engines through the deck. Run final system checks. I want everything perfect. He smiled slightly. Let's show them that science fiction doesn't always stay fiction, not when humans are involved. The bridge crew turned to their stations, preparations beginning in earnest. Through the view screen, the 3 alien vessels loomed large against the star field. They were impressive, intimidating even. But the Defiant had a secret weapon they couldn't match, the unshakable human belief that anything was possible if you wanted it badly enough. In less than an hour, they would prove that sometimes reality could be even more incredible than fiction. The game was about to begin, and humanity's future hung in the balance. But as Walker watched his crew work, he felt nothing but confidence. The Defiant might look like something out of science fiction, but she was very real. And she was about to show the galaxy exactly what humanity could do. 10 years earlier, Dr. Thomas Reed sat bolt upright in his bed, his heart pounding and his mind racing with equations he didn't fully understand. It was the 3rd night in a row he dreamed of strange machines and impossible physics. But these weren't just dreams. They felt like memories. He stumbled to his desk, barely taking time to turn on the light before grabbing his tablet. His fingers flew across the screen, trying to capture the formulas before they faded like morning mist. The numbers didn't make sense. The theories contradicted everything he knew about quantum mechanics. But somehow, deep in his bones, he knew they were right. Computer, display Project Quantum Shield notes, he commanded, his voice rough from sleep. The holographic display lit up, showing his previous work. Side by side with his new equations, patterns began to emerge. Impossible patterns. Beautiful patterns. The next morning, Reed walked into the Advanced Projects Lab at the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, looking like he hadn't slept in days. He hadn't. Other scientists looked up as he passed, then quickly looked away. They'd all heard the rumors. Brilliant Dr. Reed was losing his mind, chasing impossible dreams. Dr. Reed, called out Director Williams, stepping out of his office. A moment of your time. It wasn't really a request. Reed followed the older man into his office, already knowing what was coming. The director's desk was covered with Reed's recent project proposals, each one marked with bright red Reed GECTD stamps. "Tom," Williams said, sitting down heavily, "you're one of our best minds. But these proposals, quantum shields that bend reality, plasma drives that ignore conservation of energy, it's science fiction, not science." Reed placed his tablet on the desk and pulled up his latest equations. "Look at this. Really look at it. The math works. I can prove it works. We just need to think beyond conventional physics." Williams sighed, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Where did these ideas come from, Tom? And don't tell me they came to you in dreams again." "Not dreams," Reed said quietly. "Memories. My grandfather's memories." He pulled an old, worn photograph from his pocket and placed it on the desk. It showed his grandfather standing in front of what looked like a crashed aircraft, but the design was like nothing that should have existed in 1947. Williams picked up the photo, his eyes widening. "What is this?" "My grandfather was part of a recovery team. He never told anyone what he saw, what he worked on. But before he died, he held my hand, and something happened. He transferred something to me. Not just memories, understanding." The director was silent for a long moment, studying the photo. Finally, he opened his desk drawer and pulled out a thick folder marked classified. Inside was another copy of the same photograph, but this one was in better condition. It showed more of the crash site, including strange symbols on the craft's hull. "We've been sitting on this for decades," Williams said. "The best minds in the world couldn't make sense of the technology we recovered. But you." He looked at Reed's equations again. "You're not just copying it, are you? You're improving it." Reed nodded. "The aliens who built that ship were advanced, but they were linear in their thinking. Humans, we think differently. We make intuitive leaps. We see patterns where others see chaos. My grandfather understood that. He knew we could do more than just reverse engineer their tech. We could make it better." The next 5 years were a blur of activity. Reed led a team of engineers and scientists who took his dreams and turned them into reality. The quantum shield generator they built was half the size of the alien original but twice as powerful. The plasma drive system incorporated principles that seemed to defy physics itself, but worked perfectly in practice. When construction began on the U.S. Defiant, many questioned her unusual design. But Reed knew every angle, every curve had a purpose. The ship wasn't just a vessel, it was a statement. Humanity announcing to the galaxy that they weren't just ready for the stars, they were ready to revolutionize space travel itself. Reed stood in the observation room, watching as construction robots assembled the Defiant's hull. Behind him, a heated argument was taking place between military officials and project supervisors. "It looks like something out of a video game," one admiral complained. "How are we supposed to take this seriously?" "That's exactly the point," Reed said, not turning around. Everyone fell silent. Video games, science fiction, movies. While other species were carefully plotting out each step of their technological evolution, humanity was dreaming, imagining, creating visions of what could be. And now, he pressed his hand against the glass, smiling as another hull plate locked into place. "Now we're making those dreams real." "But the design," another official protested. "It's not practical. It's not traditional." Reed turned to face them. Neither was the first airplane. Neither was the first submarine. Every great leap forward in human history came from someone looking at the conventional wisdom and saying, "What if we tried something different?" He walked to the conference table and pulled up the ship's specifications. Every angle serves a purpose. The quantum shields don't just protect the ship. They bend reality around her. The hull design enhances that effect. The plasma drives don't just move the ship. They create possibilities that other species never imagined because they were too focused on what they thought was possible. The room was quiet as the officials studied the data. Finally, the first admiral spoke again. "And you're certain this will work? That when we meet alien life, this ship will prove humanity's worth?" Reed smiled, thinking of his grandfather. "This ship isn't just going to prove our worth. It's going to show the galaxy that humanity has something unique to offer. We don't just adopt technology. We reimagine it. We improve it. We make the impossible possible." As the officials filed out, Reed stayed behind, watching the construction continue. He pulled out his grandfather's old photo and looked at it one more time. "You knew, didn't you?" he whispered. "You knew we'd take what you found and turn it into something amazing." The Defiant's hull gleamed under the construction lights, her unconventional design a testament to human creativity and determination. In a few years, she would meet her first real test, a test that would prove to the galaxy that sometimes the most fantastic dreams could become reality. And when that day came, humanity would be ready to take its place among the stars, not as students of alien technology, but as innovators who could turn science fiction into science fact. Reed touched the photo one last time before putting it away. His grandfather's legacy wasn't just the alien technology he had helped recover. It was the understanding that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to dream big and then work tirelessly to make those dreams come true. The Defiant wasn't just a warship that looked like science fiction. She was proof that with enough imagination and determination, humanity could make fiction into reality. Admiral Dex stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching the small Earth vessel with growing unease. The Defiant should not exist. Its very presence challenged everything the Stellar Confederation believed about technological progress. Species were supposed to advance in predictable, measurable steps. Yet here was this impossible ship, built by a civilization that had only achieved spaceflight a century ago. "The exercise parameters have been transmitted," reported his science officer. "Their captain has accepted all conditions without protest." "Of course he did," Dex muttered. "Because either they're lying about building that ship themselves, or—" He didn't finish the thought. The alternative was more disturbing, that humans had somehow made advances that took other species centuries to achieve. On the Defiant's bridge, Captain Walker reviewed the combat exercise parameters one final time. The alien challenges were complex, but there was something oddly familiar about them. Each scenario followed perfect logical progression, like a computer program working through every possible variation. "They think too much like machines," Walker said to his crew. "Look at these attack patterns. Everything is optimal. Perfect. They've probably run millions of simulations to determine the absolute best approach to every situation. And that's their weakness," Officer Wilson added from his engineering station. "They're not accounting for human unpredictability." Walker nodded. "Exactly. They've given us 3 scenarios to test our capabilities. But they're testing us against their own standards, not ours." He turned to his tactical officer. "Load combat pattern Delta 7. "Sir?" The tactical officer looked surprised. "That's a training scenario from the Academy." "It's not. Not logical." Walker smiled. "That's exactly why we're going to use it. Begin recording all sensor data. I want the aliens to see exactly what we're doing and how we're doing it. No tricks, no hidden capabilities. Just pure human ingenuity." The 3 alien vessels moved into position, their massive forms creating a triangle around the much smaller Defiant. In the observation room of Dex's flagship, dozens of alien scientists and military officers gathered to watch. Many had bet their reputations on proving that humans must have had help developing their technology. "Exercise begins in 3 minutes," announced the automated system. "All vessels confirm ready status." On the Defiant's bridge, Walker took a deep breath. "Shield status." "Quantum shields at full power," Wilson reported. "The aliens are trying to scan them, but the physics involved are giving their sensors fits. I don't think they've ever seen anything like our shield pattern." "They haven't," Walker said, "because no one else would think to design shields based on video game boss battles. Dr. Reed was a genius for realizing that sometimes the most effective solution isn't the most logical one. The countdown reached 0, and the exercise began. Immediately, the alien vessels began executing their planned maneuvers. Their movements were perfect, precise, and completely predictable. "Pattern recognized," called out the tactical officer. "They're using standard Confederation fleet tactics. According to their exercise parameters, their simulated weapons should be overwhelming our shields right now." Walker grinned. "But they're not, are they? Because our shields don't work like they expect shields to work." "Wilson, execute defense pattern Mario." Several alien observers gasped as the Defiant's shield suddenly shifted, creating what appeared to be rotating geometric patterns around the ship. The effect wasn't just visual. It was causing their targeting systems to have fits. "What are they doing?" demanded one of Dex's science officers. "Those shield harmonics make no sense. The power requirements alone should be impossible to maintain." Dex watched in growing amazement as the Earth ship began to move. Instead of trying to maintain optimal distance and firing positions, the Defiant was dancing. There was no other word for it. The ship spun and weaved through space, like it was performing for an audience rather than engaging in combat. "Sir," Wilson called out on the Defiant's bridge. "Their targeting systems are going crazy trying to predict our movement patterns. They can't get a solid lock because they're trying to calculate where we should be based on normal physics." "That's because we're not using normal physics," Walker replied. "We're using video game physics. The quantum shields don't just protect us. They bend reality around us. And reality doesn't always have to make perfect sense." The alien vessels attempted to adjust their tactics, but every time they thought they had the Defiant figured out, the Earth ship would do something new. It would spin when it should have banked, accelerate when it should have slowed, and create shield patterns that seemed to defy the laws of physics. "This is impossible," one of Dex's officers declared. "They must be cheating somehow. No ship can move like that." But Dex was beginning to understand. "They're not cheating," he said quietly. "They're playing. Look at their movement patterns. They're not trying to find the optimal solution. They're having fun." The exercise continued, and with each passing minute, the aliens' perfectly planned strategies fell apart in the face of human creativity. The Defiant didn't just avoid their simulated attacks, it turned their own tactics against them, using moves that seemed to come straight out of science fiction. "Final scenario complete," announced the automated system. Exercise concluded. Analyzing results. The bridge of the Defiant erupted in cheers, but Walker quickly raised his hand for silence. "Send the full sensor data to the alien flagship," he ordered. "Everything. Shield harmonics, engine outputs, power distribution. Let them see exactly how we did it." Admiral Dex received the data personally. As he reviewed it, his expression changed from skepticism to surprise to something approaching awe. The humans hadn't just built an advanced ship. They'd completely reimagined how a ship could work. "Sir," his science officer reported, "analysis confirms it. Their technology is real, and it's entirely their own design. In fact, some of these innovations, they're beyond anything in our database. They've taken basic principles and developed them in ways we never considered." Dex nodded slowly. "Because we were too focused on finding the right answer. They were focused on finding new questions." He straightened up. "Prepare for transmission to Earth. I believe we owe Captain Walker and his crew an apology, and perhaps an invitation to teach us a few things about thinking differently." On the Defiant, Walker looked at his crew with pride. They hadn't just proven that their ship was real. They'd shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology, but their ability to imagine new possibilities and then make them real. Mary Cooper's fingers flew across her communications console as she analyzed the flood of data coming from the alien vessels. While everyone else on the Defiant's bridge focused on the ongoing combat exercise, she had noticed something odd in the alien transmissions. There was a pattern there, hidden beneath the surface. "Captain," she called out, not taking her eyes off her screen. "I think I found something interesting about their combat systems." Walker turned away from the main view screen where the alien ships were regrouping for another attack run. "What have you got, Cooper?" "Their ships. They're running on autopilot. Not completely, but their combat systems are almost entirely automated. The crew is just there to monitor and override if necessary." She pulled up more data streams, confirming her theory. "And the automation is based entirely on combat simulations. Millions of them, all running in real time." Wilson leaned over from his engineering station to look at her screen. "That explains why their attacks are so predictable. They're letting computers do all the work based on pre-programmed scenarios." "More than that," Cooper continued, excitement creeping into her voice. "Look at their response times. When we do something unexpected, there's a delay. Not in their ship's reactions. Those are instant. But in their crew's reactions. They're not used to having to actually make combat decisions." Walker walked over to her station, studying the data. "They've gotten so dependent on their simulations that they don't know how to handle situations their computers haven't predicted." He smiled slowly. "And everything we do is something their computers haven't predicted." The Defiant shook slightly as another simulated attack bounced off their quantum shields. The aliens had adapted their tactics, but they were still trying to fight according to their programmed rules. It was like watching a chess computer try to play against someone who kept changing the rules of the game. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, "they're forming up for another attack run. Pattern suggests they're going to try to surround us again." "Let them," Walker ordered. "Cooper, can you tap into their combat simulation network?" "Not to interfere. I just want to see what their computers are telling them." Cooper nodded, her hands dancing across the holographic controls. "Already working on it, sir. Their security is good, but it's predictable, like everything else they do." A new display appeared on her screen, showing complex mathematical models and combat predictions. "Got it. Their systems are trying to calculate our next move based on their historical combat data." Walker laughed. "Historical combat data that doesn't include anything like the Defiant. No wonder their predictions keep failing." He turned to Wilson. "How are our shields holding up?" "Better than expected, sir," Wilson replied. "The quantum field is actually getting stronger the more they attack it. Dr. Reed's design is doing exactly what he said it would. It's learning and adapting. The aliens' weapons would probably work great against conventional shields, but against ours," he shrugged. "It's like they're trying to play rock, paper, scissors with someone who keeps inventing new hand signals." On the alien flagship, Admiral Dex was reaching a similar conclusion. His bridge crew watched in growing frustration as their sophisticated combat computers repeatedly failed to predict or counter the Defiant's movements. "Impossible," one of his tactical officers muttered. "Our simulations have covered every possible combat scenario, every possible ship configuration, every possible tactical decision. How can they keep surprising us?" "Because," Dex replied slowly, "their entire approach is based on surprising us. Look at their ship design. It doesn't follow any logical progression of technological development. Look at their tactics. They're not trying to find optimal solutions. They're creating new problems we've never considered." He stood up and walked closer to the main view screen, watching as the Defiant executed another impossible maneuver. "We've spent centuries perfecting our combat simulations, making them more and more sophisticated. But in doing so, we've trapped ourselves in a box of our own making. We can only fight the way we've trained to fight." The Defiant spun suddenly, its quantum shields creating patterns that made it look like there were multiple ships for a moment. The alien targeting computers went crazy, trying to lock onto all the phantom images at once. "Sir," Cooper called out on the Defiant's bridge, "their combat computers are starting to crash. They're getting too many conflicting data points. Their crews are having to take manual control." Walker nodded. "Now we'll see how well they can actually fight." He turned to his tactical officer. "Prepare for real combat maneuvers. Not the showy stuff we've been doing. Let's show them what the Defiant can really do when we get serious. The Earth ship's movements changed suddenly. Gone were the flashy spins and twirls. Instead, the Defiant began moving with deadly precision, each action flowing smoothly into the next. It was like watching a martial artist switch from a demonstration routine to actual combat. The alien crews, forced to rely on their own skills rather than their computers, found themselves completely outmatched. Without their combat simulations to guide them, they struggled to coordinate their actions or predict where the Defiant would be next. "Message from Admiral Dex," Cooper announced. He's calling for an early end to the exercise." Walker raised an eyebrow. "On what grounds?" Cooper's face broke into a grin as she read the message. "He says there's no point in continuing. Quote, you've not only proven your ship's capabilities, you've exposed a critical flaw in our entire approach to space combat. We've become so reliant on predictions and simulations that we've forgotten how to truly fight." The bridge crew exchanged proud looks as Walker composed a response. "Tell the Admiral we accept the early conclusion, and add that we would be happy to arrange joint training exercises in the future without combat computers." As the alien ships powered down their weapons systems, Wilson spoke up from his engineering station. "Sir, do you think they understand yet what really makes the Defiant special?" Walker looked around at his crew, humans who had taken an impossible dream and turned it into reality. "They're beginning to. The Defiant isn't just a ship that looks like science fiction. She's proof that sometimes the best way to advance isn't to follow a careful, logical progression of small steps. Sometimes you have to take a giant leap and trust in your ability to make it work." Cooper's console beeped with another incoming message. "Sir, Admiral Dex is requesting permission to send a team of observers to Earth. He says the Stellar Confederation needs to learn more about human intuition and creativity." "And there it is," Walker said softly. "Tell him we'll be happy to teach them, as soon as they're ready to learn that the most powerful technology isn't the one that follows all the rules. It's the one that dares to break them." Dr. Thomas Reed stood in the observation lounge of the Stellar Confederation's flagship, watching as engineers from a dozen alien species studied holographic displays of the Defiant's systems. 2 weeks had passed since the combat exercise, and the aliens still couldn't quite believe what they were seeing. "But the power requirements should be impossible," one alien engineer insisted, pointing at the quantum shield specifications. "The energy needed to bend space-time in this way." "That's because you're thinking about it wrong," Reed explained patiently. "You're trying to force reality to match your calculations. We did it the other way around. We imagined what we wanted to achieve, then figured out how to make reality agree with us." Admiral Dex stood quietly in the corner, watching the exchange. The past 2 weeks had turned everything he thought he knew about technological advancement upside down. Humans didn't just think differently, they dreamed differently. On the Defiance bridge, Captain Walker was having a similar conversation with a group of alien tactical officers. They had requested a demonstration of the ship's combat capabilities without any computer assistance at all. "Your movements during the exercise," one officer asked. "They seemed random, chaotic. But they weren't, were they?" Walker shook his head. "Far from it. Every move was based on decades of human imagination. Video games, movies, books. We've been practicing space combat in our minds long before we ever reached the stars." "But that's not real combat experience," another officer protested. "Isn't it?" Walker smiled. "What is experience except learning what works and what doesn't? While your civilization was running computer simulations, humanity was playing games where we had to think creatively, adapt quickly, and imagine new solutions. We weren't just playing. We were preparing." In the engineering section, Wilson was showing a group of alien technicians how the Defiant's plasma drive system worked. Their expressions ranged from disbelief to awe as he explained the principles behind it. "The system shouldn't be stable," one technician said, shaking his head. "The energy flow patterns are based on the way water moves in a river," Wilson finished. Dr. Reed got the idea watching his grandson play with toy boats. Nature doesn't always follow the most logical path. It finds the path that works. Mary Cooper had perhaps the most interesting task. The aliens had asked her to explain how she had managed to decode their combat computer systems so quickly. She sat at her station, surrounded by curious alien communications officers. "Your security was perfect by your standards," she explained. But that was the problem. It was too perfect, too predictable. Humans, we make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes lead to discoveries that perfect logic would never find. Back in the observation lounge, Reed pulled out his grandfather's old photograph. An alien scientist noticed it and asked about its significance. Reed handed it over, watching as the alien studied it carefully. "This was your inspiration?" the alien asked. "A crashed ship from your past?" "Not exactly," Reed replied. "The ship gave us some basic principles, yes, but the real inspiration came from my grandfather's understanding that humanity's greatest strength isn't our ability to copy technology. It's our ability to reimagine it." The alien looked confused. "But your quantum shields, your plasma drives, they're based on technology from this crashed ship." "In the same way that modern aircraft are based on the Wright brothers' first plane," Reed explained. "We took the basic concepts and then asked ourselves, what if? What if shields could do more than just block attacks? What if engines could do more than just move a ship? What if we stopped trying to follow the logical path and started blazing our own trail?" Admiral Dex finally stepped forward. "The Stellar Confederation has existed for over 1,000 years," he said. "In all that time, we've prided ourselves on our logical, methodical approach to advancement. But in just a few generations, humanity has shown us that there might be another way." He turned to look out at the stars. "We've spent centuries perfecting what we know. You've spent centuries imagining what could be. And somehow, that led you to create a warship that looks like it came straight from science fiction." "That's exactly where it came from," Reed said quietly. "Every advancement humanity has ever made started as someone's dream. Someone's crazy idea that just might work if we tried hard enough." On the bridge, Walker was finishing his demonstration. The alien officers had finally stopped trying to analyze the Defiant's movements and started to appreciate the artistry of her design. "Your ship," one officer said, "it's not just advanced. It's beautiful. Even its combat maneuvers are like a dance." Walker nodded. "Because we never forgot that technology shouldn't just be efficient. It should inspire. The Defiant doesn't just fight well. She makes people dream about what else might be possible." Admiral Dex gathered everyone in the main conference room for a final announcement. Representatives from Earth stood on one side, the alien delegation on the other. The Admiral looked at both groups before speaking. "The Stellar Confederation hereby formally recognizes Earth as an advanced spacefaring civilization," he announced. "But more than that, we would like to propose a new partnership. We have much to teach humanity about the stars, but it seems humanity has even more to teach us about reaching for them." Reed thought about his grandfather as the room erupted in applause. The old man hadn't just passed on alien technology. He'd passed on the understanding that humanity's greatest gift was its ability to take dreams and forge them into reality. The Defiant hung in space between the Earth and alien vessels, her unusual design no longer drawing skeptical looks but admiring ones. She was proof that sometimes the most fantastic dreams could become reality, that science fiction could become science fact, and that humanity's place among the stars would be earned not by following in others' footsteps, but by daring to walk their own path. Walker stood on his bridge, looking out at the assembled ships. "Send a message to all vessels," he ordered. "The Defiant is ready to begin joint training exercises whenever they are." Cooper smiled as she transmitted the message. "Should we show them our old science fiction collection?" "Sir, give them some inspiration." "One step at a time," Walker laughed. "First, let's show them that sometimes the best way to advance isn't to calculate every possibility. It's to imagine something impossible and then find a way to make it work." The stars stretched out before them, full of possibilities that even the Stellar Confederation had never imagined. But that was all right. Humanity was ready to help them learn how to dream bigger. After all, that's what humans did best. They took fiction and turned it into reality, one impossible dream at a time.